How are you guys? Ooh, it's getting kind of full in here. Um, quick announcement. Shelby, one of the girls in our youth, she's back there waving her arm. Um, a while back, she was selling popcorn for, I think it was Cheer, right, Shelby? Yes, for Cheer. And she said if you've ordered, they have come in, and she'll be in the back after church, so you can go and pick up your order. But for the word of the week, I want to do something a little different since we just kind of came back from camp. I want to give you guys a camp update about everything that has happened at camp. We took a couple kids, I believe 15 kids, and then probably about 7 leaders to San Simeon to go camp out and just have a good time and get out of the heat, right? And so we were there from Thursday all the way to Saturday. And so what we did is we kind of, we gave them the word. We went through the book of, not the book, we went through the chapter 1 Timothy 1. We went all the way from 1 all the way down to the end. And and so it was just amazing to see how God was working through that as we kind of taught how we're supposed to live. And so we talked about this letter that Paul wrote to Timothy. And so we talked about just different things, and please bear with me as I try to cram, 3 days into, a couple minutes. But what we talked about is who was Paul and, what he did and then what God has called him to do and just the impact he has had on Christians and who Timothy was, who was Paul's true son in faith. Kind of showing their relationship there and how close they were. Now, obviously, it's not, Paul was Timothy's biological dad, but that's how close they were and how they saw each other. And that Paul taught Timothy how to be a Christian, just how to live. And so Timothy spent all this time under Paul, and then finally Paul says, okay, Timothy, go. Right? He says, I trust you enough now that I want you to stay back. I want you to go, and I want you to teach those leaders who have been teaching wrong. Right? But not just teach them, because there's different ways you can teach, right? You can teach like a strict, hard lesson, and nobody will get it because you're not doing it out of love. And so we talked about how, as Christians, when we teach, we got to teach out of love, right? We got to be sincere about it. But in order to teach, we must know what to teach, right? And so one of the examples that kind of got thrown around all camp is, I can't teach somebody Spanish, right? If I tried, it just wouldn't work. I don't know Spanish. Right? So you have to know what you are teaching in order to teach. It makes sense, right? And then we keep on going and we go, okay, well, now that we know, as Christians, we're called to go out and share the good news. What is it that we're supposed to be teaching? And it's we talked about the law and who the law was made for. And in this book, it talks about the law was made for those who are impure and unrighteous and for those who need it. And so that got us thinking, okay, well, as Christians, what is our law? And it's the Bible, right? The Bible wouldn't have been made if we didn't need it, right? We need this Bible, and that's why it was made for us. And so we talked about the law, and that's what we're supposed to teach. And when you teach and you go out and you're trying to teach others, it's going to be hard because, it's kind of what I look back at my life and what I've done. I go, man, if I'm teaching people and they know what I've done, like they're not going to listen to me, right? And so Paul, he says, he thanks Christ Lord who has given me strength. And I think about it, I go, why did he need strength? Well, in order to teach, right? It's not an easy job, right? People are going to look at Paul because of what he has done as Saul before he gave his life to the Lord. And say, this guy, he used to do this and this and this. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And that can be very discouraging. And so Paul has prayed for strength. And Paul, one thing that I enjoyed teaching was verse 15. And it says, here's a trustworthy saying that deserves full acceptance. Christ came into the world to save sinners, of whom I am the worst. Man. So we look at our lives like, I can't teach because I used to do this, or, maybe I've had, one too many Saturday nights, right? I can't teach that, but God can't use me, right? We all like to think that whatever we went through is the worst. Well, something I told the kids is, you're a little late, right? It's already been claimed. What you do is not the worst. Paul's already said, I am the worst, and God is big enough to see what I was doing and say, okay, you're doing this, let me grab that, and let me turn it into something amazing and show you how great I am, right? And so, so that should be encouraging to us, knowing that God can take the worst of all sinners, right? That's what Paul said. He was the worst of all sinners. They can grab that, take it, and say, look what I have done, right? And then we talked about clinging to our faith. Because as our walk with God, there's going to be times where we get tempted. There's going to be times where we know something is wrong, but man, do we want to do it anyway. And in those moments, we need to really surround ourselves with Christ and surround ourselves with those people who love God, right? And Allie taught a great lesson on that. And it touched all of our hearts, and we just got to talking, right? Just the youth kids were opening up that last morning. The leaders were opening up on their times and stuff. And so one thing that we kind of talked about that came up was, because there's sometimes where we go through rough times. It's something that, at least in my life that I shared is, I only wanted to be a football player my whole life, right? From when I was a baby until, I'm old and retired, right? That's all I wanted to do. But then it just abruptly stopped, right? And it just stopped. All of a sudden, I'm standing on the field watching the other quarterback take a knee and run out the clock. I wasn't in control. I just watched him. And that's my last football play. And I look back and I see how much that has meant to me. And at the time, that was number one in my life. And because I was number one in my life, I started walking away from God, right? And what God did is he grabbed that and said, look, let me take this away from you. And so here I am. It stopped, right? And so that forced me to look back and say, wow, this is God. I'm going down this wrong way when I was playing football. And I know if I would have continued to play football, I wouldn't be here at this church today, right? And so God sometimes takes what we love, right? The only thing we ever wanted. He might take that because you're going away from him. He loves you enough to take that one thing that matters to you, right? And take it away from you so that you can look back at him. And as Christians, man, we're called to share the good news of God, right? That God loved us so much. John 3:16, right? We all know it. That Jesus came. He lived a sinless, perfect life. He died on the cross, and he rose again so that we can have eternal life. And it is our duty as Christians to share that. So now we know, as Christians, we know what the law says. We know what the book says. We know how we're supposed to live, right? But now it's time that we go out and we teach. And man, let me tell you, I want to thank all you guys for your support with the youth. And man, it was amazing to be there and to see the kids grow. And I had a goal for the camp, just that maybe one kid would be touched, right? Just one kid would be touched. And let me tell you, the first night after Tanner, delivered a great lesson, or Tanner moved from the back over here now. He taught this lesson that just hit everyone in the heart, right? And we go to the beach, and I'm looking, I go, man, we're supposed to play night games, but it's pitch black. Like, we can't do anything. And so I'm like, you guys just kind of hang out here or whatever. We had kids who would go off on their own with someone else, kids that didn't even know each other. They would go off and have a heart-to-heart and cry together. And so I'm standing there, and I look around. There's 2 kids over there, 2 kids over there. There's a couple kids over there. And I'm going, God, what is going on? Right? And these kids are just fellowshipping with each other and crying together. And they're just talking about their experiences together. And this was night 1. This is what I wanted for the whole camp. And it was done on night 1. And so I'm sitting there, I go, God, you're in control. What's going on at this camp right now? You are bigger than that, and you are going to accomplish more than I can ever imagine. Right? And some kids who I thought wasn't really paying attention, kind of texted me and said, hey, I liked when you said this. I liked when you said this. Just like you said, God might take something away from you that you wanted, and he'll turn it into something better, right? And I'm thinking, like, man, I think every single kid's heart there got touched. And that's just an amazing thing. And I'm just so grateful that, me and all the other leaders were just able to be a part of that. I just want to thank you guys as a church for continuing to support the youth. And I'm sorry it took so long, but thank you guys.